Here, during the Second Battle of Prospero, would be when the White Scars would officially take part in the Horus Heresy, and Jagatai Khan would issue a decisive command to his crew: establish contact with the remainder of the White Scars fleet. The order that he would issue out would be clear: engage the Death Guard with full burn, employing the Gungacha formation. Outnumbered and outgunned, the Death Guard swiftly fell back into their defensive perimeter, their formation in essence collapsing under the relentless assault of the White Scars. The White Scars would then go on to press their advantage, their vessels unleashing a relentless barrage of lance energy, churning space into a maelstrom of relentless fury. The Second Battle of Prospero, while intense, lacked the sheer terror of its predecessor. Unlike the earlier confrontation, which had been marked by brutality, this battle was driven by strategic necessity. The Death Guard, under the expectation of integrating a new ally, were caught off guard by the ferocity of the White Scars' own assault. The two fleets would engage in a fierce struggle, their ships locked in a tangled dance of broadsides and attack runs as they maneuvered away from Prospero proper. Despite Mortarian's adept leadership, the Death Guard's smaller forces were unable to match the speed and firepower of the newly reunited and reorganized White Scars. The conflict would gradually move out of the system proper, culminating in Mortarian's decision to fully disengage and retreat towards the Mandival jump points. The Death Guard, leaving behind a trail of plasma and fire, vanished into the warp, ceding control of local space to Jagatai Khan and his White Scars. With the Death Guard routed from Prospero, the 5th Legion ceased its pursuit. Their fleet regrouped in a loose formation reminiscent of their stance at Chondax. However, the process of restoring order properly proved rather challenging and violent. The Khan personally visited each battleship, extinguishing the last remnants of rebellion with his unyielding resolve. Blood was spilled aboard numerous vessels, with some falling completely under the control of the White Scars Warrior Lodge members, who continued to champion Horus's cause. While some of the dissidents chose to self-terminate rather than face surrender, most acknowledged the Khan's authority and submitted in repentance. Several smaller vessels either destroyed during the engagement or disappearing without a trace never reached the muster. These ships were presumed lost, either through conflict with the Death Guard or an unwillingness to accept the repudiation of their alliance with the traitors. The insidious influence of the lodges had its roots rather deep in the White Scars, and the Khan would learn that not all corrupting growths could be eradicated so easily. In the aftermath of the Second Battle of Prospero, the wounded Hiask Nayan Khan remained aboard the Swordstorm. Only after Mortarian's departure did Quin Za attend to him, methodically removing his weapon and armor before escorting the leader of this rebellion to the confinement chambers. Hyask offered no resistance, his demeanor betraying his profound despair. Alongside Hyask were others taken into custody, including Gagulhal, Hibou, and Trong Kang. As they awaited their judgment, they were guarded by the Khan's personal retinue. The 5th Legion had no precedent for such actions, but the ancient laws of the steppes on Chagoris dictated a single punishment for treachery and betrayal, that of death. On the other hand, the 1,000 Sons Astartes Arvida remained with the White Scars Legion, as he was now assigned a proper quarters on the Swordstorm. His health had deteriorated significantly from his prolonged ordeal on the dying world, necessitating several solar days for full recovery. Before he could recount his experiences during this period, Stormseer Usij Tartiel had fought his way across the galaxy aboard the frigate Sickle Moon to reunite with the Khan. The two, alongside Arvida, spent a considerable amount of time together in private discussion, though the contents of these conversations were unknown to most, except the Khan. It was reported that Yagesi inquired first about his friend Isaac Araman, whom he hoped to find. Arvida, however, could offer no concrete information. The Stormseer surmised that Araman had either been killed by the Space Wolves or he had escaped into the warp with Magnus, rendering the likelihood of their reunion in any friendly manner, exceedingly slim. Thus Arvida stood as a sole remnant linking the White Scars to the former loyal Thousand Sons. Once the immediate violence of restoration had subsided, the Khan retreated to his quarters on his flagship to deliberate the Legion's future. Only Quinza and Yegesi remained with him during this period of reflection. It became apparent that a Guritel, or a summit of the Legion's Khans, would soon be convened to address and resolve any lingering discord. It was soon evident that the Warrior Lodge faction within the 5th Legion had misjudged their objectives, for the Horus they had once venerated was no longer the figure they had sought to follow. No longer a true brother of the Khan. In the wake of the revelations brought forth by Magnus's remnant, it became imperative to disseminate this newly found knowledge as swiftly as possible. The White Scars Legion now faced a crucial juncture. A long period of uncertainty would plague them, and it was now essential to address any and all grievances, administer penance, and restore the fractured bonds of brotherhood. Though no exact date was set for the gathering of the brotherhoods of the Khans, all knew that it would be imminent. With the true nature of the treachery against the Imperium now revealed, it was clear that the brotherhoods would soon be summoned to full war. United once more and driven by a thirst for vengeance, their preparations would begin in the interim, as their forces shifted into readiness and recovery, hoping that the Legion's wounds would be mended before they were confronted by the traitors again. During his recovery from the ordeal on Prospero, Arvida developed a close friendship with Stormseer Targita Yasugi. Arvida gradually regained his strength and precognitive abilities as Yasugi made repeated efforts to persuade him to join the White Scars Legion as a fellow White Scar, now that the Thousand Sons were deemed excommunicato traitores by the Imperium. In a gesture of goodwill, Yasugi even commissioned his legion's artificers to craft a hybrid pauldron. This piece, adorned with the iconography of both legions, was intended to replace Arvida's severely damaged one from the battle against the Death Guard. Despite these overtures, Arvida ultimately decided to decline the offer. His allegiance remained steadfast to Magnus and his unwavering service to the Emperor. He was determined to follow his fate, believing that it was intricately linked to the raven motif of the Corvidae cult's sigil, thanks to a vision he had seen during his time on Prospero. Concurrently, Arvida began to experience the mutational effects of his legion's gene seed curse, what was known as the flesh change, further undergoing the transformative process that he was destined to tread. Nearly 4 Terran years had passed since the White Scars would embark on a relentless guerrilla war, executing a series of hit-and-run assaults against the traitors' supply lines deep within the void. Their strikes were devastatingly effective, but as time progressed, the traitors adapted their strategies, mitigating the impact of these assaults drastically. Simultaneously, the White Scars' numbers would slowly dwindle to precariously low levels. The Legion had already suffered the loss of 20% of its forces, all the while the traitors continued to tighten their grip on the routes leading to Terra. In the wake of a particularly crushing ambush orchestrated by the Iron Warriors on Lulven, the Kagan resolved to make his way into the Imperial throne world post-haste. His aim was to stand alongside the Emperor in preparation for the anticipated invasion of the Sol system by the War Master and his traitor forces. Yet their efforts were persistently thwarted. The White Scars found themselves ensnared constantly by the Ruin Storm, a colossal warp storm wrought by the Word Bearers during the Calth atrocity. This storm obscured a vast amount of the Milky Way galaxy, impeding both interstellar travel and communications proper. Adding to their plight, the White Scars were continuously harassed by traitor task forces consisting of both the Death Guard and the Emperor's Children, commanded by Lord Eidolon himself. A potential breakthrough would eventually emerge with the Khan's discovery of the Kailum Gate. An ancient warp gate from the Dark Age of technology, long abandoned since the Age of Strife. However, the White Scars' tactical patterns had become all too predictable for the traitors, as Lord Commander Eidolon anticipated their move correctly and inferred that the White Scars would attempt to use the gate to reach Terra. Consequently, the opportunity to leverage this ancient gateway quickly slipped away, leaving the White Scars to contend with their dwindling options as they faced increasingly formidable enemies. Upon the White Scars' arrival, they would be confronted with the shattered remnants of the Warp Gate, now overrun by their enemy's forces. A fierce battle would erupt between the two factions. During this confrontation, it appeared as though the Kagan had been gravely wounded while battling the drastically altered Lord Commander Eidolon. However, this was a ruse. It was actually Kashyyyk Master Quinza disguised in the Kagan's armor. In their retreat aboard the White Scars' ship, Lance of Heaven, Quinza would ultimately succumb to his injuries. Meanwhile, Arvida would be forced to grapple with the devastating effects of the Thousand Suns' mutational curse, the Flesh Change. With each use of his psychic abilities, he would exacerbate his genetic affliction. Every time he would aid the White Scars, the mutations would threaten to overwhelm him. Before his own death, Quinza implored Alvida to seek a cure for the Flesh Change, a vow that he would solemnly make as his friend would pass. It was later discovered that the White Scars' apparent interest in the Kalium Gate was a mere diversion. The true objective of the Kagan was to locate the infamous senior navigator Navotor Akshilix. Once found, he guided the White Scars to the cultist Warp Rift, where, concealed within the turbulent currents of the warp, lay an ancient crystalline void station. Within this station resided the Dark Glass, a relic of Archaeotech from the Age of Technology. This device was uncovered by rogue traders during the Great Crusade, and was believed to have been used in the early stages of developing the technology for the Golden Throne. Much like its counterpart on Terra, the Dark Glass held the capabilities to access the webway through a central throne operated by a psyker of extraordinary power. Despite the relentless pursuit by the Death Guard and the Emperor's children, the White Scars had succeeded in locating the Dark Glass, and they planned to use it for instantaneous travel into the Sol system. However, an operative from the Navis Nobilite, known as Bile, was secretly tasked with sabotaging this device. The destruction of the Dark Glass was imperative to prevent its potential use, which would endanger the Navis Nobilite. If the technology would become widely accessible to the Imperium, the position of power the navigators held would be destroyed in a mere instant. The White Scars, in particular the Stormseer known as Yegsi, led a small strike force into the crystalline space station, desperate to harness the power of the Dark Glass. As the station was now engulfed in chaos due to the detonation of warp charges planted by the trader's operative Bile, Yegsi would be forced to make a critical sacrifice. He directly interfaced with the Dark Glass's command throne, opening a portal through the webway to Terra directly. This action enabled the White Scars fleet to escape from the pursuing traders. Before his death, Yegsi's astral form delivered a final message to his friend Arvida. He urged Arvida to use his formidable psychic abilities to guide the White Scars fleet safely to the throne world. As the fleet traversed the imperium through the webway, it was besieged by demons. As Arvida successfully directed the fleet closer to Terra, he would succumb to the devastating effects of the Flesh Change, falling into unconsciousness. At this critical juncture, Cahild Hassan, captain of the Imperial Army's 4th Clandestine Ortra and agent of Malcador the Sigillite, arrived aboard the Lance of Heaven. Hassan assured the White Scars that Malcador would spare no effort in addressing Arvida's condition, as the Sigillite had long anticipated his arrival on Terra. In a desperate attempt to save Arvida, Malcador performed an intricate arcane ritual, merging Arvida's psyche with a fragment of the psychic essence of the still pure Magnus the Red. The synthesis created a new entity, one who would be known as Janus, and subsequently, Janus would become the first Supreme Grandmaster of the Grey Knights following the Heresy. Upon their arrival at the Throne World, the White Scars Legion assumed a crucial role in the defense of Terra, augmenting Rogel Dorn's steadfast Imperial fists with their hit-and-run tactics. Their guerrilla warfare approach proved invaluable, perfectly complementing the Imperial Fist's expertise in static defense. Jagatai Khan established a repertoire quickly here with Sanguinius, further solidifying the long-held alliance between the White Scars and the Blood Angels, who themselves had arrived to bolster the defenses of the Imperium. Imperial records would affirm that the White Scars, alongside the Blood Angels and the Imperium Fists, were the integral aspect to the defense of the Imperial Palace during the Siege of Terra. The ferocity of the Chaos Forces was such that it drove the defenders back to the very walls of the Imperial Palace, as thousands upon thousands would perish in the attempts to slow the relentless assault. The White Scars' hit-and-run tactics allowed them to effectively harass and disrupt these enemies, constantly threatening their flanks and giving openings to the Blood Angels' skybound assaults, guaranteeing that the traitors would be constantly off balance and unable to fully capitalize on their greater numbers. When a critical breach appeared imminent, threatening the collapse of the Imperial defenses, Jagatai Khan would quickly alter his strategy. Instead of engaging the formidable Chaos Forces at their flanks directly, he redirected his mobile units and the remaining Loyalist tank divisions to the Lion's Gate spaceport. At dawn, the Khan's forces launched lightning raids that caught the traitor garrison at the spaceport completely off guard, and reclaimed it in the name of the Emperor. The Khan immediately ordered the reactivation of the spaceport's defense lasers to prevent the traitors' fleets from further reinforcing their ground troops. A defensive perimeter would then be established to secure the regained territory. The White Scars successfully repelled several traitor counterattacks at this point, and began targeting Horus's unprotected dropships with the spaceport's significant armaments, drastically crippling and impacting the traitor forces' logistical capabilities. The Khan's strategic gamble proved both decisive and effective, as the traitors' supply lines and reinforcements to the Imperial Palace would be significantly reduced by these actions. In particular, the recapture and redirection of the Lion's Gate spaceport's weapons. Historical records would provide subsequently less and less information about Jagatai Khan's direct actions during the Siege of Terra. Nonetheless, it was well documented that he and his legion conducted relentless, nigh restless, hit-and-run operations across the once proud streets of Terra, as these engagements would inflict severe and long-lasting damage to the traitor forces, contributing to the broader campaign's success. When the climactic moment arrived, eventually it would be found out that Jagatai Khan had fought the newly ascended demon Primarch Mortarion, and through great effort and sacrifice of his own, he was able to slay the vile abomination. However, he was put in a near-death state for a significant period of time, as his sons would follow his orders. And when the climactic moment arrived for the Emperor to confront and defeat Horus aboard the Vengeful Spirit in orbit above Terra, the White Scars would emerge from the chaos of the Galactic Civil War, battered but victorious. Accounts suggest that Jagatai Khan's warriors fiercely clashed with the Space Marines attempting to escape to Terra's spaceports. And here the White Scars would execute highly effective raids against the traitor forces alongside the remnants of the Imperial Army's 1st Tank Division and various infantry regiments. Together they harassed the enemy's supply lines and plinked off remaining traitorous forces, forcing all remaining Chaos-aligned forces to flee towards the Eternity Wall spaceport in a desperate bid to escape. The White Scars Legion's tenacity during the Siege of Terra underscored that even though they were pushed further and further away from their brothers and the Imperium itself during much of the Great Crusade, their subsequent role in the Siege of Terra itself and the Great Scouring proved them to be some of the most loyal Astartes in the galaxy. Although Jagatai Khan emerged from the climactic conflicts of the Horus Heresy, he would eventually be removed from the service of mankind, much like his fellow Primarchs in the years that followed. The circumstances surrounding his disappearance proper, now 10 millennia past, have spawned a multitude of legends, some exaggerated beyond reason. The White Scars possessed their own narratives regarding some apocryphal and others regarded as historical fact. Nonetheless, it is a firm belief amongst the White Scars that their gene-sire continues a relentless hunt, this time across the webway, and they hold a firm belief that he will one day return. In the wake of the Horus Heresy and the devastation therein, the Maelstrom Warp Rift had become a haven for outlaws, renegades, and aliens exploiting the galaxy's chaos. To address this, Robert Guilliman, now Lord Commander of the Imperium, mandated a reinforcement of the surrounding star systems. The White Scars would be entrusted with the principal responsibility of securing this area around their homeworld. For 70 Terran years following the Horus Heresy, it seemed that Jagatai Khan had led the White Scars, purging the Imperium of traitors and alien invaders who sought to exploit humanity's vulnerability. His leadership during this tumultuous period remains a testament to his enduring commitment to the Imperium and humanity as a whole. As the Horus Heresy had left the Imperium both fragmented and ravaged, the Great Khan would continue to embark on the scouring proper, as he was determined to restore all worlds once loyal to the Emperor. His efforts mirrored the fervor he displayed during the Great Crusade, with a singular focus on reclaiming lost territories. The Yasan sector, which includes the White Scars' homeworld of Chagoris, had suffered greatly, and upon his return, the Khan found his once vibrant domain in great disarray. The sector had not escaped the turmoil of the Heresy, despite being rather far away from its center, as the Drukhari, known as the Dark Eldar, had seized the opportunity presented by the sector's instability, as these malevolent beings would then launch relentless raids, capturing thousands and enslaving countless more. The victims would be then transported through the dark passages of the webway to face horrors beyond mortal comprehension. Amidst this suffering, Imperial loyalists faced near despair. The garrison left behind by Jagatai Khan had managed to mostly shield Chagoris and several other worlds critical in the production and the recruitment efforts from complete devastation. However, their efforts proved insufficient to prevent the Drukhari from capturing many of the Chagoran tribespeople as slaves. Some of the Great Khan's senior officers contended that had the garrison remained solely on Chagoris rather than dispatching detachments to defend other worlds in the sector, the losses could have been avoided. Jagatai Khan dismissed these criticisms, commending the garrison's martial spirit and autonomy. Nevertheless, the loss of the people to the Drukhari ignited a profound and singular rage within him. Fueled by vengeance, Jagatai replenished his ranks and mounted a relentless campaign against his enemies. His mission was no longer merely about reclamation. It was a quest for retribution and the cleansing of the universe of the blight known as the Drukhari. Eventually, long after the Khan's disappearance, the White Scars would become renowned for their pride, yet their humility would be equally noted. Recognizing that the galaxy would continuously offer new lessons, the sons of the Great Khan have honed their hunting skills over the millennia, evolving in response to both defeats and newly emergent threats. Amongst these most formidable of adversaries were the Tyranid hive fleets. To this, the White Scars would be compelled to adapt their tactics with unprecedented speed in order to counter the relentless Xenos menace, often at a significant cost in lives. In the 41st millennium, a strike force of the Second Brotherhood, led by Captain Subdakar, faced a dire confrontation on the world of Hadek. Overrun by the relentless swarms of Hive Fleet Hydra, the White Scars endured a devastating defeat. The loss was not only severe, but also deeply personal, necessitating retribution. Cahogan Khan, leader of the Second Brotherhood, recognized that the traditional methods would not suffice against such formidable opponents. Drawing upon the extensive strategic knowledge archived and housed within the great libraries of Guangzhou, and engaging in prolonged consults with the chapter Stormseers, he would devise a rather novel strategy. The White Scars' next engagement with Hive Fleet Hydra occurred on the volatile volcanic world of Hatorian Ukt. This planet was characterized by its treacherous terrain and rich biomass, and it was already in the beginning stages of an assault by the Tyranids when the White Scars arrived. The chitinous exoskeletons of the Xenos creatures formed what amounted to living barricades against the city's walls. Seizing this opportunity, Kahoj Khan deployed a strike force armed with an array of flamer weapons, from man-portable firearms to formidable incendium cannons. Positioned at Hive Lavrok. The Second Brotherhood would then unleash a conflagration that engulfed the Tyranids' chitinous swarms, incinerating the Xenos' flesh more rapidly than it could regenerate. The intense and precise assault was designed to exploit the vulnerabilities that they had found in the Tyranids' very biostructures, thereby neutralizing the immediate threat and extracting a measure of vengeance for the White Scar's earlier losses against Hive Fleet Hydra. When the Tyranids perceived this new prey's tactics, their hive mind's psychic distress signals summoned waves of brood spores from orbit. In response, the White Scars executed a strategic withdrawal, retreating into the volatile lava fields of the planet and drawing in the relentless Xenos swarms into this very defensible terrain. As the Tyranids surged forward, engulfing racing transports in their relentless advance, the White Scars understood that such a victory would come at a steep price. As they pressed deeper into the fractured landscape of basalt plains and seething lava currents, conjoining and timing their attacks with unwavering determination, all the while using the terrain to take out and channel the Tyranids into a more manageable swarm, their firepower would continuously blaze against the encroaching horde, while aircraft would continuously conduct relentless strafing runs, targeting and eliminating numerous Tyranid leader beasts. In the final throes, these formidable creatures spawned even more bioforms, further overwhelming the already unstable terrain. At his signal, the leader of the Second Brotherhood unleashed the full volley from his gunships and tanks into the erupting lava fields, all the while evacuating all the remaining White Scars as the ground beneath them and the Tyranids began to fracture as molten rock surged upwards. In a matter of solar minutes, hundreds of thousands of Tyranid bioforms would be obliterated, and the White Scars would liken this assault to the Chagoran Berkut in their aerial maneuvering, using this opening to return to their strike cruisers so they could rearm and regroup. This initial victory marked the beginning of a protracted yet dangerous and arduous campaign executed by high-velocity descents into the erupting lava fields, constantly dragging more and more Tyranids into their own damnation, as the White Scars had now started their protracted and relentless quest for vengeance. Against Hive Fleet Hydra. The next major moment of import of galactic scale that the White Scars would take part in would be the Third War for Armageddon. Armageddon, once more emerging as a grueling and perilous battleground for the Imperium. Amidst the frozen expanse of the Deadlands, the White Scars' daring tactics leveraged their unparalleled speed and formidable power to strike the Orcs with devastating precision. When Orc warlord Gazgul Mag Uruk Draka unleashed his second Wa upon the ash-choked hive world of Armageddon, over 20 Space Marine chapters rallied to the Imperium's aid. The White Scars, contributing 3 whole brotherhoods to the cause, would mark them as amongst the foremost forces committing to repelling the Orcoid threat from this strategically vital world. The Orc hordes ravaged the planet, as their rampages would be marked with relentless burning, destruction, and plunder. Their assaults were not random. It seems that the Imperium had been rather ill-informed, as the cults of speed targeted the Deadlands in the southern regions of Armageddon, a rather harsh, frozen wasteland housing critical Imperial infrastructure that could not be sacrificed under any conditions. Chapter Master Jubal Khan would then go on to deploy his forces entirely to the Deadlands as a part of a broader Imperial strategy. His second-in-command, Sobdan Khan, would lead a separate strike force, tasked with safeguarding the Prometheum and the water processing stations. Jubal Khan, commanding his forces to remain, directed his attention to the northern coast, where orbital scans revealed the Orcs were constructing massive structures. It seems that Greenskin's activities could not be left unchecked. Upon his arrival, Jubal Khan and his warriors discovered a sprawling complex of factories stretching along the coastline. Scout Marines would report a labyrinth of debris strewn about yards and yards, as the vast Orc presence had left its mark. Most alarming, they identified facilities as burgeoning shipyards, where numerous colossal ramshackle vehicles were found to be under construction. It seems they even built submersibles, the purpose of which was unknown, but their potential for devastation was made clear. Faced with the imminent threat posed by these incomplete vessels, Jubal Khan had no other option than to once again redirect his forces and launch a decisive assault. The White Scar's intervention was imperative to prevent the orcs from completing their deadly ships and unleashing further havoc upon Armageddon. Initially, Chapter Master Jubal Khan sought to outmaneuver the orcs by drawing them away from the critical construction activities. His plan involved engaging the Greenskins in combat to lure them away from their shipyards, thereby creating an opportunity for the White Scar's kill teams to launch covert raids. These specialized units would be armed to dismantle and sabotage the shipyard structures before the orcs could react. Despite the tactical efforts, the orcs' construction continued at a relentless pace, as orc knobs were commanding their subordinates with harsh authority, ensuring that the production lines remained active even amidst the approaching threat. Recognizing the escalating urgency, Jubal Khan resolved to take a much more direct approach. Within the shipyard's chaotic confines, the White Scars made gradual but costly progress. As they advanced through a maze of rusted, dilapidated buildings, engaging in constant close quarters and rather fierce combat, the roar of the orcs' battle cries were met with the battle hymns of the White Scars. Each day would bring them deeper and deeper still into the heart of the shipyard, navigating the landscape littered with the corpses of fallen orcs and brothers alike, their vox grills and bolters choked with ash, grime, and the viscera of the greenskins. Yet they pressed on. Despite their valiant efforts, they could not halt the orcs' overall advances as a flotilla's colossal submarines and ramshackle orc vehicles began to emerge, destined for the Tempest Ocean. Realizing the urgency of the situation, Jubal Khan committed to a relentless campaign to destroy the remaining facilities and shipyards. His goal was to halt all production of new invasion craft, denying the orcs their seemingly greatly desired naval capabilities. Meanwhile, Subden Khan faced a strategic dilemma. Aware that his forces were insufficient to secure all critical infrastructure across the Deadlands, he formed a high-risk strategy. His objective was to deprive the orcs of their desired targets, drawing them in to a concentrated assault that he could use as a decisive counter. Subden Khan ordered the destruction of Valdez, Gamma, and Yarrick Point pumping stations. This tactic, while leaving the remaining Promethium drilling stations of Dante's Canyon, would function to draw in the orcs, as Dante's Canyon's facilities would become their sole prize. He had aimed to funnel them into a killing field, a predetermined kill zone. Dante's Canyon, surrounded by sheer ice cliffs, packed snow, amongst the toxic gases of the planet, was ideally suited for this purpose. The terrain allowed for Subden Khan's forces to channel the orcs into pre-prepared ambush sites. To further entice the orcs, small detachments of White Scar's brothers would be stationed at the canyon proper, making it appear even more valuable. Simultaneously, scouts planted explosives designed to trigger an avalanche and compromise the ice's integrity, setting the stage for a rather dramatic confrontation. As the conflict at Dante's Canyon reached a critical juncture, a strategic maneuver was set into motion. Subden Khan, commanding a second, larger detachment of White Scars, prepared to lure the orcs into their meticulously prepared terrain. The plan was to entice the Greenskins further with their presence and lead them into the trap proper, where the landscape was rigged with explosives. The final detachment, consisting of elite assault marines under Subden's direct command, was tasked with this crucial objective: to confront and eliminate the orc warlord leading this horde. The defense of the Promethium drilling station was fiercely contested, with waves upon waves of orc storm boys assaulting from above, and the defenders' bolter fire providing rather devastating counterattacks against these, as many orcoids fell from the skies, their bodies crashing into the station's rigging with a grim finality. Those orcoids who managed to land were met with a ferocious counterattack from combat blades and tulwars. Despite their valor, the sheer number of storm boys soon tipped the balance, and the combat would grow increasingly desperate. Meanwhile, the second detachment of White Scars engaged the orcs in a frenzied melee. Their battle cries and engine roars punctuated the acrid stench of smoke and burning fuel. The chaotic engagement drew the orcs' full attention, allowing the White Scars to execute their next move. Unfortunately, leaving behind the bodies of their fallen comrades, they led their pursuers directly into the rigged terrain of Dante's Canyon, named for the chapter master. At the prearranged moment, the explosives detonated, unleashing torrents of snow and fractured ice upon the orcs' forces. Thousands upon thousands of orcs would be buried under the avalanche, while others would plunge through the weakened ice, drowning in the frozen depths of the oceans. Though the White Scars suffered losses, the trap proved effective in decimating the enemy's forces. Despite the devastation, the orc war boss and his elite retainers continued their advance towards the beleaguered drilling station. In response, Subdan Khan's detachment launched itself directly at them, and the ensuing battle was both brutal and intense, as the orc chieftain was a rather formidable adversary, as he cut through the White Scars' ranks with a furious aggression, his roars echoing prominently throughout the fray. Subdan Khan maneuvered around the war boss with precision, striking with his blade before retreating, provoking the war boss's furious rage. As the duel reached its peak, the orc leader seized Subdan's jump pack with his power claw, crushing it under immense pressure. Despite the dire situation, Subdan managed to deliver a devastating blow, severing the war boss's head. With their leader slain and casualties mounting, the remaining orcs broke and fled, leaving the White Scars to pursue and eliminate the retreating forces. The victory at Dante's Canyon, though hard-won and costly, would mark a significant triumph against the overwhelming odds. Amidst the relentless combat surrounding the orcs' shipyards, the White Scars Airborne emerged as a crucial element in the struggle. The orcs, driven by their sheer ferocity, continually pressed against Jubal Khan's positions as artillery fire pummeled the battlefield from a distance. The once clear corridors and passageways soon became choked with corpses of the fallen greenskins, barricading them further against their enemies. In this dire situation, Jubal Khan resorted to extreme measures as he ordered the full deployment of his strike force's aircraft, integrating them into the front lines to counter the orcs' renewed offensive. The airstrikes would be called in with such precision that they often landed precariously close to Jubal Khan's own forces. This was a desperate gamble to halt the orcs' relentless assault. The aerial assets, including the Storm Talons and Stormhawk interceptors, delivered devastating and precise missile fire, which obliterated the orcs' artillery positions post-haste. Explosive bursts from missiles turned the orcs' guns into infernos, incinerating both artillery and its crews. White armored gunships, their barrels glowing white hot from sustained fire, relentlessly strafed the enemy positions until their ammunition was exhausted. Transports would also now play a vital role in ferrying supplies and evacuating the wounded amidst the chaos. Orc vehicles, ships, and other structures would be reduced to molten slag by the concentrated laser and multi-melta fire. Their occupants, caught in the searing heat, would be eliminated. This intense aerial support eventually allowed Jubal Khan's forces to regain their foothold. Amongst the aerial units, Storm Talon Squadron Arshi distinguished itself through this relentless engagement. These craft, already battle-worn from previous skirmishes, pushed themselves to their very limits in every single sortie to inflict the maximum damage possible. Arashi intercepted orc warbikes attempting to attack the flanks of the White Scars' positions, engaging in fierce dogfights with greenskins, as their pilots would excruciate daring acrobatic maneuvers, unleashing torrents of fire that brought down many an enemy aircraft, proving themselves indispensable in the fight against the orc invasion. A notable victory of this airborne squadron was when they obliterated an orc sea vessel which was leading operations. The explosion itself was rather cataclysmic, incinerating over 1,000 greenskins in one go, and sending numerous smaller ships plummeting into the frigid depths beneath the Tempest Ocean. This decisive strike marked a high point of the aerial campaign, fueling their relentless drive for victory. The squadron's dominance, however, would be quickly challenged as the Orc air forces mobilized. The skies would be soon teeming with crudely constructed Orc jets and bombers, resembling more a locust swarm than a proper air force, as White Scar's pilots, eager for the high-stakes dogfighting that was being provided, would embrace this challenge with a fervor. Arashi's pilots, demonstrating exemplary coordination and bravery, engaged the Orcs' formations, and despite being heavily outnumbered, when a fellow squadron suffered severe losses, Arashi's pilots plunged into the fray, buying them precious time for the survivors to regroup. They intercepted a squadron of greenskin aircraft on a self-termination mission directed at Jubal Khan's position. It appears that the Orcs were attempting to take out the leadership of the White Scars, and in one precise, relentless firepower, they managed to detonate Zarbog's notorious Blitzabama squadron, using the Orcs' own ordnance to obliterate them mid-flight. By the campaign's end, Squadron Arashi had achieved legendary status, as their heroic exploits would serve as a powerful symbol, inspiring the White Scars into further feats of bravery and valor. Eventually, the Third War for Armageddon would end, and the next major point in the White Scars' history with galactic repercussions would come. In the shadow of the Great Rift, around 999 M41, the Yasan sector would face a renewed and devastating assault from the legendary Huron Blackheart, the infamous Chaos Space Marine warlord and pirate king. With Jubal Khan's forces still concentrated around the war zone of Armageddon, the defense of Chagoris fell on Brutai Khan, the captain of the Second Brotherhood. Huron Blackheart's fleet, known as the Red Corsairs, surged from the Maelstrom in a menacing three-pronged assault, a barbed trident aimed directly for the Yasan sector. Their advance was marked by a relentless, ruthless efficiency and an unrelenting ferocity that has led many to suspect that the Red Corsairs were actually sons of Guilliman. Desolator and Repulsive class capital ships tore through the Imperial frigate's defense with overwhelming firepower, while waves of heretic fighter craft blocked, along with flocks of Helldrakes, swarmed through the void. Space hulks, along with massive, malevolent beings, would bear down upon defense platforms, and, like predatory moons, the worlds of Gutai and Thaxis fell swiftly. Their defenders were ruthlessly slaughtered in brutal campaigns, and the surviving refugees would flee through the void towards Chagoris. However, only a scant few ships managed to reach Chagoris' orbit, as the warp's tumultuous currents pitched Imperial voidcraft into perilous whirlpools of madness while accelerating the traitors' warships towards their target. By the time servitor probes detected the approaching traitor forces, Brutai Khan understood that victory would not be achieved through space engagements alone. Quite frankly, the Red Corsairs' naval capabilities were far outstripping their own. Standing on the ramparts of Quinzhou, Brutai Khan observed the inferno engulfing the skies and declared that the decisive battle would be fought on the grounds of Chagoris itself. It was on this rugged terrain that the fate of the sector would be determined. The defense would be waged blade to blade. As Huron Blackheart's forces descended upon Chagoris, a significant portion of the White Scars chapter was engaged elsewhere, across the stars. The initial signals of danger would prompt Astartes to send urgent distress signals throughout the warp, calling all White Scars and any chapters who could lend aid to the chapter's home planet. However, Brutai Khan faced a grim reality. He could not rely on reinforcements arriving on time, or possibly at all. Outnumbered by the heretical dropships now landing on Chagoris, he and his remaining forces would need to employ every ounce of their hunter's skills and ingenuity to survive. At this point, the White Scars possessed two crucial advantages. First, intimate knowledge of Chagoris would allow them to navigate its fierce weather patterns and hidden canyons with precision, unlike their traitorous adversaries. And while the enemy struggled in the salt marshes and would be hindered by the violent storm fronts that constantly plagued the planet, the White Scars turned the environmental hazards to their advantage. The heretic Astartes would then fall into the tempestuous gales and be caught off guard by the swift White Scars bikers cleaving through them and the treacherous terrain, or being torn apart by the super predators lured intentionally into the fray by infiltrator squads. Secondly, the White Scars fought as a cohesive unit, and unlike the chaotic adversaries, their discipline was unmatched, as Blackheart's forces splintered into numerous raiding parties, as the chaotic champions competed for the favor of the Dark Gods and Huron himself, leading to disjointed efforts and wasted time. The invaders squandered weeks hunting the steppe tribes of the Empty Quarter, who despite their limited means posed a rather fierce resistance with all available weaponry, many of which had been directly handed to them by the White Scars in order to take out Astartes. Despite these strategic advantages, the conflict proved desperate, as the White Scars would continuously harass and execute hit-and-run tactics, yet the overwhelming numbers of the Chaos Forces relentlessly pressed down upon them. Nomad camps were reduced to ashes, and White Scar fortifications were left as smoldering ruins, and even their own airstrikes would diminish drastically over the engagement. Wherever Huron Blackheart personally led his forces, they were in essence unstoppable, carving a path of destruction across Chagoris, virtually uncontested. Upon Jubal Khan's return from the battle-scarred world of Armageddon, he brought with him the remnants of his strike force, but their efforts did little to stem the overwhelming tide of heretical forces. As the situation would deteriorate further, the skies over Chagoris darkened and tore apart, giving rise to a wave of chaos and terror known as the Cicatrix Maledictum, as it gaped open and the maelstrom expanded to engulf the fringes of the Yasan sector. From this rift, legions of malevolent demons would emerge, joining Huron Blackheart's onslaught. In the face of this new threat, the Chagoran tribes were thrown into a state of panic and disarray. Within mere solar days, hundreds of thousands of Chagoris inhabitants would be eradicated, their lives extinguished by the relentless advance of demonic hordes. Recognizing the grave threat to the tribes which formed the backbone of the White Scars recruitment, Jubal Khan ordered his forces into a desperate counterattack. His strategy was to lure as many Chaos forces as possible into a pursuit that would lead them back to the fortress monastery of Quan Zhou. Thus, after months of brutal conflict, the final chapter of the struggle on Chagoris would unfold within the rugged Kum Katra mountain ridge and the fortress monastery that had stood tall since the days of the Primarch. The destiny of the White Scars would be decided amidst the blood-soaked ruins of their ancestral stronghold. At this critical juncture in the siege, Khosrow Khan, the master of the hunt, and his third brotherhood would finally return to Chagoris, as they had braved the maddening storms and the all-consuming darkness of the Noctis Artrina, a journey which had exacted a severely heavy toll on their ranks. Upon their arrival, Khosrow Khan wasted no time, as he quickly mobilized the remaining White Scars forces through the Empty Quarter, rallying them alongside the formidable militia drawn from what remained of the tribes willing to resist what seemed to be an inevitable end. As they led the formidable coalition, Khosrow launched a decisive assault on the rear lines of Huron Blackheart's besieging forces. Employing the Chagoran Tempest, Khosrow's Stormseers cloaked his attack in the veil of a storm. By the time Blackheart recognized the threat, his forces found themselves under an attack from both the front and the rear. After 3 grueling solar days of intense combat, Khosrow's warriors managed to breach the defenses of Quan Zhou, compelling Blackheart to execute a tactical withdrawal. Despite the setback, the traitors could have prevailed. Their reserves surged in from across Chagoris, vultures ready, but yet, in a twist of fortune, the Noctis Artrina lifted from Chagoris momentarily, diminishing the energies of the warp and disrupting many of Blackheart's demonic allies' grip on reality, causing the demons to flicker, leaving his forces greatly in disarray. Faced with a now unexpected, weakened, and uncertain battlefront, the Tyrant of Badab chose wisely to withdraw, marking a critical turn in the struggle for Chagoris. As Huron Blackheart and his elite Red Corsairs withdrew, they would leave behind renegade warbands to wreak havoc across Chagoris and to give them time to retreat and fortify their positions across the Yasan system. The galaxy was now in turmoil, and the era of chaos was in the horizon. Blackheart, all too well aware of this, understood the protracted nature of his campaign, and understood that the conquest of the Great Khan's homeworld would necessarily be a drawn-out and arduous process. In the wake of his departure, the White Scars now faced a formidable task of reclaiming the ravaged worlds, and preparing for the inevitable further threats that loomed despite the destruction and the challenges that lay ahead. Not long after the Red Corsairs' withdrawal, Battle Group Delphi II of the Indominus Crusade and Fleet Tertius managed to navigate the tumultuous warp storms ravaging the galaxy in order to arrive in the Chagoris system. The fleet brought with them the White Scars' Primaris Marine Brethren, bolstering the chapter's strength for the renewed struggle, with the chapter's forces quickly adopting their Primaris Brethren into their forces, and now augmented with new blood. The White Scars launched a massive counteroffensive with a renewed vigor and ferocity. Simultaneously, recruitment efforts commenced amongst Chagoran's surviving and vengeful sons, as the tribes would allow the selection of new neophytes to be transformed into the Primaris Marines, new neophytes who could now be substantially older and even physically unwell. Thus, the White Scars began the arduous task of reclaiming their homeworld and home sector, as they prepared for the ongoing conflict that lay ahead.